Now, issues, you need to look at the supervision side. Again, whole bunch of situations, you get yourself a great producer who will work with you through the whole of the project and be extremely useful, and you will become best friends and launch it to the market and have a shared time at the I don't know, a documentary at Prime or Disney Plus telling how much great of an experience it was for everyone. But life is life. Things might go into a completely different direction, and you need to pay attention on those things. It's very simple for producers to manipulate feedback, to bury down the deadline, and this is the reason why you need to establish all of the deadline procedures and toponymy of the feedback and type of the feedback and definition of feedback being critical, not critical, and how critical points influence deliveries and non-criticals are going into the next stage and you're obliged to fix it over the next stage and stuff like that. So it's a two-side line. You need that to be honest. Expectations from you is that you will deliver for all of these positions and the checklists, and you would not play this stupid developers, and some developers do that, like you formally deliver on these checkpoints and quality-wise they're like shit, right? I mean, it breaks trust. It doesn't work. You need to be 100% interested in not in getting the next advance and next tranche of monies. You need to be interested in making a good game in the first turn, and money is the means to produce this game. Though, from other hand, you need to be able, in your expectation from the producer, not to get crazy. Be professional enough and be able to provide you with the substantial and reasonable feedback which is aimed to make the game better without breaking its integrity and initial author of plan and idea behind it. The way you discuss it is, again, simple. You sit down, you qualify what type of feedback, what kind of vision, you align the vision initially at the beginning of the development, spend some time on how the project procedures work. You need to define level of access of producer into internal processes as well, because you don't want that person to be able to go to anyone at the team at any time of the development and put any task without knowledge of everyone else about that happening, for example, which is kind of obvious, still happens a lot. And at your end, you don't want situations like you change a big part of the development without informing the publisher's producer. This is also unacceptable, really. But keep in mind that power is still at the producer's end, because if something happens which goes out of the practices, and producer can say that we will not accept the stage, we're not gonna pay for the next one. The question to you is that are you able to say that, well, then screw you, we're out, like, let's look at the contract, let's get the contract on the table. If you do that, we don't agree due to this and these reasons, and we're out. Can you do that? Now, I think that in most of the circumstances without damage, you probably not. So you need to define as much as possible and as clear as possible in this department at the beginning of the development. A relationship locked hierarchy wise, dev cannot go to up the chains otherwise and then specified without consequences. We talked about that. I will reiterate a little bit. Whoever you talk to in a company, if you started to talk with people on the top, keep on talking with the people on the top. Yes, executives would be irritated about that, but don't care. A lot of people play politics about excluding people from top of the hierarchy for people who takes decision to interpret everything that happens in your relationships and making this a political tool. Don't allow that to happen. If you have a possibility to talk with the most important person in the company, do that and do that regularly. Like, not in a matter of annoying point, but just sustain these relationships to the point where if anything happens, you're always able to go into location of the person, have a nice dinner, and politely discuss some of the issues that happened in the development, and have a word in a situation that otherwise will unwrap without your participants. Do not allow people to interpret your things. It's a killer. If you allow, you will be out extremely quickly due to someone protecting their own self-interest in any even situation, even remotely reminding a crisis and making someone scared. You will be out. So keep on relationship with the people at the top and be able to have a conversation with them. Degree of feedback is not specified often, and by degree of feedback, it's different from the first part. I want to say that what you want to do, you want to basically make sure that when you finish the pre-production and when everything is approved, no crazy shit get introduced somewhere in between because someone just wanted that, without contract being changed completely, without an addendum, basically. It means that, look, I've been telling the story before. I was a part of the project once where production and the management decided to hire a contemporary American Hollywood writer who read the script of the story, which set into the distant future, and came back with the script of an idea of 10 flashbacks into an Atlantis in the past that will help to open the character arc of multiple characters, but also will multiply the budget of the game almost twice. Like, alright, I'm widening, not twice, but let's say 40-50%. The person literally wanted to introduce a completely different setting, which would be active. Think about the size of the magnitude of the Assassin's Creed, another timeline. And our next question was, will our budget be extended due to this request? And it turned out that the management didn't even knew that this change is happening, and they were like 100% against increasing the budget. But they would be fine with the changes if we would do that for the same amount of money, which is virtually impossible. But a lot of people would agree to this shit and start burying this game into completely unreasonable feedback that goes against any reasonable point of decree. Also, keep in mind that a lot of these things happening not because people are bad or trying to frame you or screw you, though obviously there are people who are bad and they would try these things. But in most of the circumstances, it happens because people just don't really have the skill and understanding of why these changes would be so expensive and dramatic. Writers are creative people, especially consultant writers. They get in and they basically, I think that will make this much better. And you're like, yeah, much expensive. It's like, that's not my job to evaluate these things. I'm not even the part of this whole thing. Like, it's your job. So the person is right. It's indeed your job to try to catch these things and to define initially what is the degree of the feedback and how it will be controlled in general. Inexperienced supervision will get you to the production hell. Look, I'll be very straight here. I know that a lot of people don't like me saying these things, but I'm way too old and I've for a long time in this industry, so I don't really care. If someone tries to take the team of 20 people which been making 5 or 6 games before and like 15 years in the industry and set someone's nephew or someone who they hired for $40,000-$50,000 a year because they are saving money, who spent 2 years into the game development doing QA jobs, and they try to put this person into position of the producer of this company, don't take that. Don't work with inexperienced people. Don't work with too much asymmetrically inexperienced situations at all. Like, why would you? Like, experience is factual. It doesn't matter if person is a good person and they are extremely progressive and they have these amazing ideas and super talented. Producer is just not the job, and the commercial relationship of this level is just not this kind of the job to put someone who is extremely asymmetrical experience-wise with the team that are trying to deliver this project. Like, you need to find someone who is at least at the same level. Like, maybe better. And I'm talking like functionally better. Also, please try to avoid situations where asymmetry works in a completely different way. Trying to bring in the producer who's been working in, let's say, Activision and Microsoft, managing a 200 million budget for a 600 people team, and try to put this person to work with a AA 50 people team with a 5 million budget is a very simple way to kill this team. Because a producer with an experience like that will be relying on existing practices and his previous experiences of having a situation where he has all of these resources and the super big corporation behind them, and that just wouldn't work well for anyone. Producer pushing soft non-contract specified positions like marketing related changes and materials is an issue as well. So what I mean by that is, let's say you got into the marketing stage and supervision producer person works closely to marketing, and they come up and they basically say that, look, it's not on a contract, but we need a trailer for every major show now, like 1.5 minutes engine rendering for story plots and stuff, and we also need, and this is not specified anywhere, but we also need 100 screenshots every week, and they should be done manually and stuff like that. Or let's say marketing, and I know that this is what a lot of people talk about, and this is how it works, and I want to spend a little bit of more attention here. So there is a lot of cases where DIY agencies or like other companies racketeer their way into development. It's true, there's a lot of ways where big companies are looking for the services of DIY agencies because they want to impress some of the founders of some of the investors. That's true as well. But I think that the most frequent situation in the market is actually when marketing is getting, and we will talk about it a little bit later, marketing getting to the point where they need to substitute some of the things where they drop the ball with other messaging, and they need to sell internally something incredibly attractive for internal thinking, and they come up with this concept which will always look into making audience larger. I talked about this before. A part of an issue here is like everyone talks about new audiences, but no one talks about the risk of what amount of percentage of old audience you will lose introducing these elements. And I think that everyone should, really. But no one does it because it doesn't sell. It's a form of a lie. It's a form of bamboozling the founders, but it happens very, very often. And you want to specify and you want to put it out contractually that there is a vision, there is a script of the story, there is an essence. These are the key points that will not be changed 100% of the time. And some of the things which are reasonable, and I've been telling this for a long time, if you really want to oppose anything related to artificial agendas, the smartest way is to have the minimal representation which is integral to your story being done in advance. And we will do that, actually. If you make a big game, a third-party adventure, you might have a little bit of this, little bit of that, and that would be in a comfortable way for you. And you would do that professionally. You'll have people of few nationalities, obviously, into the game, and they will take all of the parts responsibly, and your character is traveling between a bunch of countries, so of course you will. Of course there are men and women and children into the game, which is a heavy story game. Of course it is. And publisher will tell you to be careful about children, by the way. Of course, from the point of view of sexuality, I mean, if you want to introduce to someone homosexual, someone with LGBT type of the part at the positive side, do it your way in advance, very slightly, in a very natural way. Because the problem of people who are trying to change stuff from non-studio side, who are trying to demand things basically from the outside, they're not specialized in anything than you do. Like, look, all of these people, like in media, in marketing, and often, unfortunately, in the producership corps at this point, they don't understand how to make games. Just, they never really did, a lot of them. They don't understand that it's incredibly stupid and hard to demand people to change anything and demand it in an obnoxious manner, because it often would be just impossible or very hard. And you want to have a line of the opposition where you just say that, look, we settled at the beginning of the relationships and at the contract side. We signed the contract. We don't change anything. We do it the way comfortable for us, and those changes are unacceptable for us, like at all. And if you set this in advance, and if this is in a contract, then you can work around it. And even if you would need to introduce anything, you would do it on your own rights and on your own terms to make everyone kind of bit happy, but it would be under your control. And keeping those things under your control is super important. And again, I mentioned this a couple of times in various scenarios. The question is not, DIY is just the most prominent subject now. There's a bunch of other topics that you want to avoid from let's try new audience thing type of this scenario. Because it typically goes against the integrity of the game and the game general message, and it alienates all of the core audience and make your game obsolete, and it just doesn't sell to anyone at the end. Because the game just do not appeal to anyone. And now again, supervision and marketing people, they would never take responsibility for the game flop. They would just say that something else happened, because they will try to interpret whatever feedback you have the way which is advantageous for them, because they're closer to the decision center. So this is how it works, if you wanted to know. Unapproved consultants are an issue as well. And the problem with all of the unapproved consultants is that consultants are not specialists in anything. Consultants and the overall, and it's often not even the consultancy, it's often how the consultants' feedback are insisted to be implemented by the people who hired consultants. It's people showing up in the office that provide opinion, which should be an opinion, which should be non-mandatory, which should work. It's something you can look as an alternative outlook of someone on some specific issue. But because psychologically, because for someone who hires consultants, pay a lot of money, often a lot of money, and they've been convinced that those people are experts in something, they would also insist that you would use this consultant's feedback, who are not specialists in what you do, again, to an extent. And you want to at least be able to approve consultants and say that this should be happening on demand and only in the situations where it's reasonable, where there's necessity appeared for it, or just not, or avoid it whatsoever. Also, keep in mind as well that when consultancies are happening, it will go against your budget because it will mostly qualify as marketing expenses. So think about it this way: when someone is introducing this a DIY or a specific expertise agency, those money will be reimbursed from your sales as well. as a developer. You need to keep this in mind. And because it is, you have the word in it, because it's a part of your revenue, and you need to have a word into this situation. So that goes to supervision issues, but again, I've tried to get friendly with the producer, try to get someone professional, try to get someone specific for your genre and someone for the audience you're working at. Like, this is the best advice you can get now when it goes for the producer at the publisher's end.